Willie Fritz officially announced as the new head coach at Houston. This comes, as we mentioned, news breaks basically during stretches of the American Athletic Conference Championship game. Something that Willie Fritz's camp must have been working on a lot. They were holding it off till after the championship game. So now championship game's done. Willie Fritz era at Houston begins. Tom, you have been a champion of the Willie Fritz as a candidate. Mm-hmm. You have mentioned him for a lot of different jobs over the last 2 hiring cycles.
Hiring cycles. I was trying to get him in Illinois like 8 years ago.
He lands with Houston. What are your thoughts on the fit?
I think it's the reaction to it is a surprise from a lot of people. I think in that some people aren't totally understand why he would leave Tulane for Houston, but I think if you're Willie Fritz, he's reached a point in his career where it's the last thing that he has to check off, because he's coached at pretty much every level and succeeded. And he got to the FBS level. He took a G5 job at Tulane, got to a Cotton Bowl, won it, nearly won another conference title this year. And he probably feels like he's proven his point at that level. And now he's got a shot at a Power 5 gig. And if you look at Houston and you could say, well, there's a lot of work there to be done. Yeah. There's a lot of work to be done at Tulane when he got there. There's a lot of work to been done at a lot of places when Willie Fritz got there and he did the work. This is just kind of what he does. So I am not shocked that he's taking this job. I don't know if it's going to work out as well. I have confidence in it because I think Willie Fritz is a terrific coach and he has been for a very long time. And when you look at the Big 12, I mean, once Texas and Oklahoma leave, it's anybody's game now. Like there's no doubt, like Houston, if you look at the interest in that program and the resources that some of the boosters are willing to put into that program, they have a shot to compete in the Big 12 in years to come. They have a shot to be one of the top programs in the league. And they think Willie Fritz, who has built a lot of programs up into that, kind of mold, is the guy to do it. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Houston. And I think it makes plenty of sense for Willie Fritz if you understand where he's coming from.
I love this hire for Houston, man. I mean, now, Tom, finish the line. I love this hire.
I have no idea if it will work out.
Right. Here's all the reasons why I really like it, okay? I kind of have this thing where if you're a really good coach at multiple schools and like you maximize all the schools that you've been to, there's probably something to that. Like you're probably a really competent person who goes in with a plan, knows what the hell they're doing, understands where they're at, what kind of resources they have, what you can get done at that school. Tulane has made 5 bowl games in a row, and has either won or contended for the American a bunch of years in a row, with the exception of 2021, which kind of screws his record. But if we recall what happened in 2021, oh, that's right. New Orleans got rocked by a hurricane, and Tulane had to live in a hotel in Birmingham, I think it was, or Mobile, like one of the two. Their season was basically just like a barnstorming type team that year. It wasn't a real season. If you look at his last 5 campus underwater seasons, they're awesome by Tulane standards. We talk about a lot of times like, hey, look at these guys that win at the lower level. Chris Kleiman, Lance Leipold, Kalen DeBoer. You know what? Willie Fritz went to the national championship 2 years in a row at that level. He also had another deep run in the playoffs there when he was at Sam Houston. Like they have a system that they understand how to run. They recruit to it. Like they know what the hell they're doing. They're really good with personnel. He's made good hires. Like he went out like they needed a new DC this year. Do you know who he got? Troy's DC. Like I think they follow the sport. They make good hires. If Houston's administration is not if they're not a cluster, then I think
we'll
do well there. Yeah,
that's an if. That's the one. But the other aspect of this too is like Pratt's leaving. Like Pratt's going to the NFL. This might. I think that if Fritz stayed at Tulane, he'd be able to rebuild it, and they'd still be one of the better programs in that league. But this could be the crest of the green wave. So it could be the opportune time for him to jump.
The Big 12 is losing Texas and Oklahoma. And certainly in the wake of the college football playoff, it does seem like the Power 2 world is really starting to arrive. But the Big 12 is on a different tier than the American Athletic Conference. And the gap between those two conferences this year, has been exposed. I think Willie Fritz is looking at, I don't know how much longer he wants to coach, but I do think that if he wants to try to test himself at the highest of levels, he had to go. And this is at least an opportunity to level up because the conference he was in has gotten weaker as some of those teams have gone to where? The Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there is a market inefficiency to be exploited by the schools that are, I would say, like jobs that are not top 30 jobs, but they're sort of in that 40 to 70 range. There are really good 60-year-old coaches out there, right? Indiana just hired one. Willie Fritz is 63. A lot of these ADs have this dream of, all right, I'm going to get Kirby Smart. He's going to coach here for 25 years and be a dominant thing, like a guy will never leave.
David Tepper over here.
Yeah, there's a lot of these dudes who won't take some of these lower Power 5 jobs because they know the overwhelming odds are they get fired and they have to move their family in 3 years again. If Willie Fritz does a good job, you can hold on to him for 10 years. He doesn't really show any signs of slowing down. I think Indiana did the same thing. I think they're being really smart and exploiting what may be a market inefficiency in terms of a little bit of bias against some of the older coaches out there, especially when the good young coaches don't want your job because they don't think they can use it as a stepping stone.
Did we mention Signetti on the show?
I just put it in. We've got Jake Hale for helping us out here. I really appreciate it, Jake. I just had to throw it in the rundown. Indiana hires Curt Cignetti from James Madison. We hadn't even gotten a chance to mention it yet. Bud, you just said you think it was a really good hire. What we heard from your deft reporting, or maybe it was Zach's reporting, that there's some financial investment that's coming right here. So what are the expectations? Does this fall in line with your thought that there's some real investment in Indiana football?
Yeah, I think that Indiana is committed to not being the worst team in the Big Ten.
Curt Cignetti will not let that team be the worst team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no. I expect them to be competent, right? Not awesome, but should they be large underdogs to Maryland every year? I don't think so if you're running at closer to peak efficiency. And I don't know, just hiring guys who have good track records, who want your job, who are going to take it, appreciate the job. Curt Cignetti is not constantly thinking, hey, I need to use this as a stepping stone job to get Alabama. He's 63?
Mm-hmm.
You can get 10 good years out of these guys. Everybody out there in America should sign up for a nice decade of program football, considering how many times you got to fire guys after just 3 or 4 years.
And you're right about the moving family. I mean, the kids are grown, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not as concerned about that stuff. We're going to come, we're going to settle in, and we're going to be a part of the community. I'm not going to be stressed out about anything else other than trying to provide winning football for your university.
I guarantee there's a lot of good young coaches who don't want the Indiana job because they see it as a dead-end job.
Mm-hmm.
Cignetti can go to the thing where he's an absolute pain in the ass to most of the Big Ten teams they play because they're going to be really hard-nosed, disciplined. They're going to,
they're not going to beat themselves.
Right.
The James Madison teams did not beat themselves.
And he could be bringing McLeod with him because McLeod entered the portal shortly after Cignetti took the job. So, Cignetti's another one. He's won everywhere. Even when he took over James Madison while they were still, in the FCS, they had a few down years, and he got it turned around real quick. He was winning at Elon. He was winning. He got Elon to the playoff in back-to-back seasons. This is not. I mean, I know we don't talk much FCS. That's not commonplace.
Yeah.
So, he's been in this situation before. Indiana is putting money into the program, and I do think we've talked about it on the show. I wrote about it a couple weeks ago. You have to now. You can't just be the team at the bottom of these leagues bringing in all this money and not invest and think that eventually they won't get rid of your ass if you're not pulling your weight. And I think Indiana is ahead of the curve on that. They realize we don't have to compete for Big Ten titles, but we need to start spending like we're trying to. And I think now you've hired a good coach who will, at a minimum, at least have you competing for bowl games every single season. It is going to be so much more difficult to get to a bowl game in these new leagues. So it sounds weird now to say, hey, we're just going to try to get to a bowl game once in a while, but that's going to be the reality for a lot of these programs. And Cignetti is a great person to bring in to do that and possibly earn more, because this is a man that is used to winning everywhere he's gone. And if he does win, like you're saying, bud, he's probably not going to job hop to a quote unquote bigger job. So when he shows up at the Indiana basketball game saying like Purdue sucks, Ohio State sucks, Michigan sucks, he's planning to be there for a while. You don't just show up and start screaming that stuff.